Hi, I'm Sarah Grace McCandless, and this is OnBrand. You know, one of the focuses of this show is about connection. And I can't think of a way that we connect more than through the power of story. It's something that's been there from the dawn of time, right? And how we tell story, though, is what has changed, whether it's from a visual sense or an auditory sense or a little bit of both. There are brands who tell story to consumers. There are consumers who tell stories to brands. And then there are organizations where their brand or their product is telling stories, whether that's to inform and educate, to inspire, maybe even to escape a little bit. Today, we're going to take a closer look at story and how that plays a role today in terms of driving connection. And my guest is a true expert in this field. She's a seasoned journalist in entertainment media and television, and currently oversees the Hollywood Radio Television Society as CEO. Melissa Grego, welcome to OnBrand.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Honestly, your career is just so impressive. I'd love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about your background, your career, and then the role you play as CEO of HRTS.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's funny because, my background, as you said, is in journalism. So I spent about 20 years covering the business of television and media and entertainment. And along the way, about 5 years ago, I just got to a point where I felt I was interested in trying to do something with what and who I knew and how I understood the business that I was covering that could provide a positive impact. And I was really interested in areas of inclusion, diversity, and equality. And I had founded a series of conferences for women working in TV and entertainment, and to basically share information and experience to help one another thrive in their business and connect with each other. And so I had launched a business looking to develop a membership network among people working in the business, and I was, freelancing and consulting as a journalist, writer, editor along the way. And then one of those just, amazing miracles that don't really happened in my career, and the position leading the HRTS, Hollywood Radio and Television Society, came open. And it turned out that this amazing organization that was founded in 1947 was doing a lot of the things that I was trying to do. And so, I had this opportunity to come and join this amazing organization, which is led by the leaders in the TV industry, board of directors. They're a voluntary board of directors who I report to. And then we have membership communities at every career level, starting with the academic, the student membership, and then a junior membership, which was established about 20 years ago, which was primarily those who were assisting the big leaders leading our industry and our organization. And then more recently, in 2016, we established the associates, which is the mid-career folks. And so in both LA and New York, our associates and junior members have voluntary boards as well. And what these boards and communities do, with the support of my office, is provide the forum for networking, information, education, career development. Really, it was founded in LA, has been growing for years in New York, and especially now in the last year or so, when we've been doing so much virtually, it's really, global. We have more and more participation throughout the US, Canada, the UK, really all over the world at this point. So we do things like events, from mixers to, which we can actually do virtually. It's different than what we normally do in person, but to roundtables and Q&As. We produce different resources with information to help people identify opportunities and candidates for those opportunities. And our membership, has evolved and grown. It originally was, originally 1947, kind of the Mad Men days. It was started by a group of media executives primarily working in radio when the first commercial TV station in Los Angeles went on the air, which was KTLA. And they got together to kind of help each other navigate this new disruptive force. And, this has been the tradition and sort of the heritage of the organization through all of these, I know it's an overused word, but disruptions to this business, in those 70 plus years. So when I joined 3+ years ago, there were a lot of disruptive forces, more every day. And my charge has been to make sure we're on top of those, and we're evolving as an organization and helping our boards guide the programming to make sure that we have programming that's relevant to the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Disruptive, disruptor is a word that's used a lot. I do think it's very appropriate in this industry. It was so interesting to hear you talk about the background and the history of HRTS too, and what was disruptive at the onset of this organization. This is also a member-driven organization. I've had previous guests on the show who also serve organizations and brands that are very membership-driven, like AARP. So I think that's really interesting because your organization is about facilitating connection between its members, right?
Right.
And you explained too that this really serves now. It's not just people who are at a certain level in their career. You really have opportunities and options for people who are at all different stages. And is it also people who kind of represent different aspects of the entertainment, television, media industry as well?
100%. You explained it so well.
Oh, great. I'm your new brand advocate. There you go.
Yes. So exactly. We're a little bit different than a membership organization like AARP because we're a business association. So we're a nonprofit 501c6, which indicates that we serve a common purpose among business interests. So our membership, we have both corporate memberships. We have, more than 50 of the leading companies within our business community, and then thousands of individual members. And yes, they are at different levels. So from starting off your career, maybe you just have an interest in the business, all the way to kind of your first entry-level positions, which would be junior, and then mid-career when you become an executive or an agent or a manager or a producer or a creative with a certain level of credits, and then the top leadership positions. Every company sort of does titles a little bit differently, and we've seen the more technology-based companies that are now in our industry, like the streamers, particularly have a little bit of a different title structure than more of the traditional studios and networks. But generally, senior vice president to C-suite is sort of our HRTS executive level members. But yeah, so traditionally, when things really shifted more from radio toward television, our core members were really the traditional studio and network companies and people leading in those companies doing the traditional scripted television, sort of the ABC, CBS, NBC groups. And that has evolved to really encompass all forms of television, which we include, streaming within that, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, all of the, newer streamers that are associated with the big brands within television and entertainment, which is something that I think is worth talking about on your show too, is all these brands within entertainment that are going through such transformation as well. But yeah, so, part of what we do is try to help our members, understand and learn how to navigate the changes in our business, how to lead through them. In the earlier sort of part of your career, a lot of what we do helps members learn, how to have different types of conversations within the office, board work, volunteer board work at the, junior level, mid-career level of your career is just, fantastic experience for building your network and getting to know people at other companies, but also just how to operate and communicate in a professional setting. So that's one of the things that I think is really wonderful about, membership. But yeah.
I want to get back to, I love what you were starting to say about kind of these brands within a brand and how things have really shifted with the impact of streaming. And it's interesting that you joined this organization as CEO, you said about 3 years ago, right?
October 2017, yeah.
Okay, so
for the
stuff. That is like if I think about all the stuff that has happened just in the last year, we just had Discovery Plus. I used to work with Discovery and Animal Planet, so I have a TV background as well, briefly. But I'll get back to that. But I do want to ask you, you mentioned the organization is very event driven, and of course that was in person. If you pivoted to virtual, can you tell me a little bit about that pivot? And have you noticed a change in terms of the focus of your programming, in terms of the topics that people are really gravitating towards right now and that are bringing people together?
Yeah. So, okay, let me take a minute, because there's so much that really has been, it's sort of galvanized all together at the same time in a really special way. And, I guess, first in terms of topic and timing and interest. So I'll start with the topic, and then I'll talk about the way that we are delivering the service. And it kind of syncs up with what the changes are within the business that we serve. I started at a time when our board was really having, a lot of conversations around diversity, equity, inclusion. And that was, of course, something that I was super interested in. I had, as part of the mission of the company that I had started was, using my network and knowledge to, help promote, equality in the business that I had covered for a really long time. So when I was producing conferences and events myself, just being very thoughtful about how you put those together and what voices are incorporated into those conversations. And one of the things that we talked about a lot when I was going through the hiring process was the interest in that, and how we as an organization at HRTS could be part of that conversation and host that conversation. And, then the Weinstein stuff broke. Me Too, had, so much additional momentum, that entire movement. And, several of our board members just were really passionate about establishing different conversations and talking about inclusion, both behind the camera and in front of the camera, in ways that were really moving the conversation forward. And because for many years, I think it's been well understood that this is a business imperative, as well as the right thing to do, that this is good for business. But change takes time, and we've seen a lot of reckoning across our society and across our business, our industry. And, so there have been a lot of changes among executive ranks, reorganizations that were both reflective of righting the ship in terms of those bigger picture things, but then also changes in our industry. So, with the move towards streaming and the different habits of consumers and viewers, and especially the younger viewers. I've told you a story. We have a 12-year-old in our house who is currently binging Grey's Anatomy. She did Friends. She does not associate those as ABC and NBC shows, respectively. Which those of us who watched them the first time around. So there's a lot of disruptive factors. So we really try to host the conversations that are the most candid and relevant of the moment. Yeah. And when everything 2020 sort of happened, starting with the pandemic, we shifted in April. The first thing that we shifted on the HRTS level was a workshop that we had designed to enhance the experience of those participating in our mentorship program. And we were going to have everybody together, I think at a conference room at Netflix, and had worksheets for mentees to fill out to bring to their mentors, their first meeting. And one of our board members was moderating. We had, mentors and mentees pairings that were successful there to talk, and we had to do it virtually. So our brave board member, hopped on Zoom and helped us try it out. And we have been, doing dozens, of events in the last year in that format. Traditionally, we do about 70 events in person per year. And so we've done, just a very few that we did last year, like in January, February, maybe beginning of March. But we canceled one in mid-March as we saw things kind of evolving, or postponed a lot of things, and have just reimagined things as virtual events. And a lot of great stuff has come out of that. I think the candor, the availability of certain speakers, it's just hard not to be like yourself when your dog is barking and, the lawn person is going by, or whatever is happening, in your home, baby crying or whatever. I mean, we've had events where, someone's kid or family was, walking behind, and it's just, it's great. Our board meetings have been virtual. Those have been super, super, amazing and productive. And part of our pivot has been, really due to the commitment and inspiration of our board that I report to. They jumped on it. They didn't put their heads in the sand. We got together and talked about, okay, well, what do we do? And we established a new tentpole sort of signature series. For decades, we were known for these regular luncheons with hundreds of people, in a hotel ballroom, high interest speakers. That was kind of the one place where you would get together and know you would see whatever you needed to see in the business. And before technology changed things, it was, you would know, like, well, I can pin them down at the luncheon. Now it's these brown bags with the board. So we have board members who are, super accomplished and interesting leaders that people are very interested among our membership to hear. And they curate conversations, they bring people in, and we have, truly inspired discussions that I think we've all kind of felt like, some of the conversations that we've had are the most powerful than we've had in many, many years.
I think that's, it's like another common denominator is I have these conversations with OnBrand. I recall when I was talking to Brian Wolf from JBL, he talked about the fact that he felt like he was more connected to his global team than ever because of being forced to pivot into these virtual situations. And, as you were talking too about how there's like a realness that it brought to pretty much every industry. As we sit here recording this show, I'm in my home, you're in yours. We're not in a fancy studio, but I'm thinking about people like Jimmy Fallon and like, his kids like Zoom bombing him or record bombing him, whatever you call it, while he's talking to John Hamm. And I mean, it's happening to everyday people and the people that we consider celebrities. So it kind of put us all on this even playing ground. And I love what you were saying too about the impact of like this. There was already this sort of shift to want to change some of these conversations in light of a current climate to be more reflective of diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
And I think, we're seeing that in a lot of the programming that's coming out as well. I do want to talk about that a little bit, this idea of, what is in your world right now. There are brands in your world, in your organization, that really didn't exist or existed in a different way. So if we think about Netflix and how that brand started, I was talking about that recently in an episode about behavioral data, because they're very good about that and understanding, really listening to their viewers and what they want. And everybody has a platform now. Peacock just launched. We've got Disney Plus, who relies on this platform as a solve during pandemic times. Can you talk to me just a little bit about that and what your point of view is in terms of the lay of the land now and how we view where we get our stories from?
Sure. Well, it's ever changing, and as far as data, that's an interesting thing, because right now, we're talking about how just the human factor enhances everything, but data is also important, and data has always been a part of things in the television business, whether it's ratings or other information, whatever they could get. And certainly, over recent years, there's been a lot of interest and urgency and seeing others' data, such as, the streamers. There's been, a lot of conversation within TV about, other brands programming that has run on the streamers, such as Netflix. And things are shifting now that, as you said, Disney Plus, Peacock, HBO Max, which is Warner Media's streaming, Discovery, AMC Networks has their own. Pretty much, everybody has to be playing in all platforms, and that's sort of been the way. I was talking with an executive recently, about how things are changing, as far as the business part of things. And, like I was saying, earlier, some people who might be, tend to be on the younger side, who are watching things on streamers that originated on another brand, might not associate them with the original brand. These are things that are on the minds of the leaders of all of these brands. How do they exist in this ever-changing landscape? And so I think that's partly why you're seeing the rollout of so many additional streaming services. It does harken a little bit back to when cable started, and you saw a lot of repeats on cable networks. And I do recall saying to the head of one network that did really great ratings with a cable network years ago, with repeats of another network's show. But then they had an original of their own. And when I said, what is the brand of this network? And they said, well, it's this show. That's what we're known for. And I think when we talk about brand, we talk about and think about brand in general, but, in entertainment, things are associated with, what do you get from them? What do you love about them? Or which product do you love? So it's an interesting thing. And I think, one of the sort of financial evolutions is that, some of these companies, they're set up differently, particularly the streaming companies are set up differently than you'll see the traditional networks and studios and the big companies that own those in a combined way. So there's a lot of reorganization going on. There's a lot of rethinking how shows come together. So there are a number of companies that are increasingly global in their approach, partnering with other similar similar brands, maybe you'll see, like an AMC and a BBC or something like that, teaming up to produce, shows that would be on brand for networks in different territories, so they can, combine resources and creative forces to create things that are on brand for them. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it got me thinking though, too, I wonder what your opinion is. I'm thinking about these brands, these streamers or networks that you work with, and they're all telling a lot of different types of story.
Yeah.
We started talking about how that, like, there could be partnerships within the brands in that industry. Do you think there's something for brands outside of entertainment, media, and television to learn from the way that the entertainment industry has been so agile and been able to sort of respond? I'm thinking about how, we've all been like watching a lot more, right? Particularly in quarantine, but we're connecting with the things that we're watching. Do you think that there's something for brands to maybe take a page from that book and incorporate into their own efforts in some way?
I do. And I feel like they do. I think we see that a lot, whether it's, watching commercials during the Super Bowl, and you see how brands interact to the responses and the way people respond to things. I think that the responsiveness is one of the sort of hallmarks of television in particular. It's a pretty typically a pretty quick turnaround. I mean, right now, TV and film and entertainment is not in production at the level that it typically is because of the pandemic. And that is certainly changing things. And it will certainly change the storyline and the content, and already has. We've seen a lot of that. You see people on This Is Us, and they're wearing masks, or SVU, or but I think the responsiveness and the listening, we had a conversation or an event in September among creators and writers behind some of the most, popular and powerful shows in recent months that really told some stories that hadn't been told. And the conversation was titled TV Storytellers, A Sense of Responsibility in a Time of Reckoning. And it was one of the most well-attended, which made me feel really positive about our membership, that they were interested, in this conversation. But it was really, really revealing. Some of the shows represented in that conversation were Watchmen and Lovecraft Country, which are two shows that depicted the Tulsa massacre. And I will admit, I'm somebody who I think of myself as, trying to be actively informed and passionate about inclusion and education. And I did not know about the Tulsa massacre until I learned about them through these shows. And I think the sense of responsibility and the sense of responsiveness that you can see in television is something that, anybody and everything, every company can take a page from. I think, people respond to that. Those two shows in particular have been, extremely lauded, and they filled some gaps in some education while being incredibly inspiring and entertaining. And that is something that really inspires me about, having any involvement in this industry. It's something that I think, certainly to the title of the conversation that we had, it comes, responsibility, a great amount of responsibility comes with that. Because stories, as you said earlier, they're how we understand the world and our experience, and how we learn, in a lot of ways. And, I think, we can all agree there's vast opportunity to learn more and better and in different ways. and that's not to say like they're getting it right, every time. I definitely have seen some things that show up on screen and you're like, well,
Yeah.
it's effort, but that's a little off. But
yeah, I think you see that with brands though too. I mean, there's probably, you got to do an authenticity pulse check on that, because we saw a lot of brands sort of like rush to a lot of situations. I would say more reacted versus responded, and it didn't land, right? And so I think, we see the same things when we look at entertainment and media and television. Some things stick and some things don't. And sometimes it's about timing. God, there's so much to talk about, but I think a great way to kind of bring this all together is I'd love to get your thoughts on what you're looking forward to from an industry perspective as we move into a new year. Now, your industry has also been, as you mentioned, greatly impacted. Shoots were on hold. Things are, sets are, I was actually in Los Angeles for the month of September working remotely from there, and accidentally turned the corner with my dog and walked into an NCIS shoot. And the PA said, I can't have you anywhere near the set because everyone's been tested. So, wow, what a difference then, when I used to live in New York and I would be so excited every time I saw, SVU filming, which is about every 30 seconds. So, which I love, I've got a big thing for Mariska, but so anyway, coming back to looking forward to 2021, lots of changes. Things are still changing. We're not past this, right? We're still in the middle of it. The world is changing. This is still going on, but what's exciting to you about your industry and anything related to the stories that might be coming ahead and being told?
There's a lot. I think I'm excited about. Well, first I want to go back to if I can, just a point that you made about reactive versus responsive, and I think that is sort of the key thing. I think there's, one of the recipes for success is being responsive and being relevant and timely. Sometimes when we're reactive and we're just doing things because we think we're supposed to, it becomes pandering, and it's not authentic, and it doesn't connect. So, kind of taking that beat and taking that pause, which is something that we try to help provide through our organization for those who are in the business of creating entertainment. It's really important. And I think that's something that, any brand, any organization, any leader can really benefit from. And we did that as an organization. We really stopped and looked at our members and how are we communicating with them and what are they going through and what are they dealing with and how can we be of service? And that's the only way we were going to survive this. It's very easy to say, okay, that we can't renew that, So as a brand ourselves, we had to do that too. We had to make sure we were responsive rather than reactive, that we were true to our members, to our constituents, our consumers. As far as what I'm looking forward to, the fact that, there's a lot of, incredible, creative, talented people, working in this industry who are brilliant at helping us make sense of things and, find the feelings that we can relate to, find the laughter, the release, the escape, as you said. And I think that there's a lot of, creativity and a lot of, I think I've said this before, but I believe it's Warren Buffett who has said this, but it's these hardest times are what make us, and it's so hard right now. So many people are, suffering and in pain and in crisis and trauma. And so, I do find that, the product, so to speak, that the industry that I serve provides, if it can provide some relief, some comfort, some escape, some information, I feel good about being part of, a group that can help support that happening. We're not, going to save the world through television, but, there's a lot of responsibility and a lot of opportunity for us to play, positive roles. And I know there's a whole other conversation to have about, the role of media in society, and that, we could have for 3 weeks. But, I think I'm looking forward to seeing how, many creators are seeing the world and help, maybe me see things differently and understand and learn about things that I didn't know about, like, the Tulsa history I learned about this past year. So I'm hopeful that we'll hear, some stories that will help. Yeah.
I think that's such a great point. And I think, again, it's one of those things that sort of transcends the industry that you're in and really is something I think a lot of brands can take note of. This is a time where you might kind of stretch out of your comfort zone and think things through a little bit of a different lens in terms of how you're showing up and, what stories that you're telling too. I mean, we've certainly seen a lot of really great creativity come out of times of crisis too. So those are the things that, and we see too, this is like history is happening right now, and so this will be documented, and it may not save lives, but it can change lives because it can, you can learn, you can get inspired, you can get informed, you can escape, and all of those things you can find a little levity and relief. And I think all those things are really important. You're so right. We could have like a 4-part conversation about this, and I actually might just hit you up for that. So we can do a follow-up on this too. But I love what you've said. I love learning about HRTS too, and your background and how the industry, just getting a sense of where things are going and how your members in the organization works together in a very connective way. So thank you so much, Melissa, for your time and your insights, and definitely be circling back with you.
Thank you so much, Sarah.